Spotted Reviews, and it is day 3 of the 2020 Advent Calendar of Christmas horror movies. And today, the movie on the docket is the 2019 film, I Trapped the Devil. Now, before I begin with this review, I just want to point out that out of all the watch hours of my channel, over 70% of them are from people that aren't subscribed. And it would help me out a whole lot if you like my stuff, if you dig my channel and my content, please click subscribe, please click the bell, and if you want to support me further, I have Patreon and merchandise links in the description below. So, that being said, let's get on with this. Alright, so 2019's I Trapped the Devil, the feature-length directorial debut written and directed by Josh Lobo, put out by IFC Midnight, currently available on Hulu. And in this movie, we get introduced to the character of Steve, played by Scott Poitras, as he plays, just a man kind of puttering around his house for no particular reason until his brother and his sister-in-law pop by for the holidays, all unannounced like. And something is a little bit amiss because Steve is not terribly warm to this uninvited interruption, which, frankly, neither would I.
Hey, you guys, you can't stay here.
We drove all this way just to see you.
Well, you've seen me, and now you gotta go.
But something beyond that, and they come to find out that this is more of a care checkup because Steve has a history of maybe not doing quite so good. And come to find out that that might be the case because there's a man trapped in the basement. He's locked up in a room down there. Steve has him down there and explains that it is not a man, it's Satan. Or at the very least, the devil. I don't think they actually call him Satan by name in this, but he trapped the devil, so he claims. Now it turns into a morality and a faith issue of, do we call the police? How do we tackle this? How do we deal with Steve? He's my brother. I don't want to do this, blah, 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 blah. The movie takes off from there. Now, to be perfectly honest, I had never seen this before, but I did read just a little bit of the opening synopsis, and I was met with a bit of trepidation. Because just from a 5-mile overview, this sounded a whole lot like one of my least favorite Twilight Zone episodes from Season 2, The Howling Man. And I'm glad to say that this really doesn't have a whole lot of resemblance to it outside of the idea of somebody capturing the devil, and now the person that's hearing this story has to deal with the moral quandary of what to do from here. And overall, I have to say that I really did like this movie for 2 principal reasons. Number 1, I'm a big fan of very simple concepts done very well. One of my favorite Hitchcock movies is Rope. Again, fairly simplistic storytelling, fairly similar circumstances. You have a chest in the middle of the room, and it becomes a bit of a mind game between the other people in the room as to what's in the chest and why, and so on and so forth. And things really kind of flesh out from there. Again, simple concepts, done very well. I'm a huge fan of that. It's one of the reasons that I get kind of giddy when I hear about a one-setting movie or a one-setting play. It's just something that when it's contained like that, I think that it really allows for a lot more of the writing to really blossom and for characters to go head to head and have a lot of depth and really bring the audience into the room with them. And the other reason that I like this so much is because it establishes a good sense of dread, which honestly is a really difficult thing for a horror movie to pull off. Horror movies are known all the time for their shock value, for startling us with jump scares, for having a little bit of tension and so on, but to actually establish a sense of true soul-crushing dread as the movie progresses is a very tricky thing. It's probably not going to be to everybody's liking. I think this kind of falls into the whole mumble horror category that a lot of people are throwing around out there. I will say that it is a bit slow, and it does rely a little bit, maybe a bit too heavily, in all honesty, on abstract visual cutscenes and elements without any dialogue to kind of carry the narrative forward. And I'm traditionally not a huge fan of that. I'm a little bit more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy, but in this case, it worked for me. Yes, you did have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. As far as the character motivations and so forth go, they didn't really align with what I would consider to be reality. I know that if it was me personally and I walked into this situation with my wife and I found out that my brother had trapped somebody down in the basement who was screaming for help and he was saying that it was the devil, well, I'd be kind of, okay, well, good job, you're doing God's work there, son. Boy, Man, I want some Funyuns. Do you have any Funyuns? Hun, why don't we go get some Funyuns? We'll be right back. Nevertheless, this movie did enter into the moral quandary conversation, and I think it did it with a sufficient explanation in terms of the abstract, as in, I know that you felt something down there too. That wasn't a normal situation, as normal as you could be talking about. So there are some sins of character motivation and realistic dialogue and so forth, but I think that a lot of them can be forgiven, especially considering that the tone that the movie puts down. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and throw the scores up here. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And I'm not going to make any bold claims like this was the best movie of the year, so on and so forth, but I do think that I would absolutely recommend it. I enjoyed it. The sense of dread that it elicited from me was something that was very unique, and I appreciate that. If you're not the biggest fan of slow, visually abstract movies, then this might be one to pass on. But me, personally, again, it did work. So on that basis, I would recommend the 2019 movie, I Trapped the Devil. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at my next review. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.